Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to Blue Rock Adventures. We made several videos about our Panga build, showing you how the hull was built and created. Was basically done from my own design, what I wanted to do with the Panga. And overall, I'm thrilled with the results of our build and everything that we've done so far. That being said, though, there are some things I definitely would do different. And anybody that might be thinking about building a Panga, you might be interested to hear some of the things that happened during our build, and you know, what I would change and what I've learned, what I think would be better now. And so I just wanted to share some of that with you today. Let me give you a little bit of some backstory on our Panga build, just so it puts it kind of in better context, right? So that, because I don't want the builder to be blamed for anything done here. He's a longtime friend of mine. I've known him for about 12 years. And during our build, he had several personal issues, some family health issues, and even some health issues. He was suffering himself, serious health issues. And so our build was originally scheduled to take 4 weeks, and it ended up taking 10 weeks with myself and his helper basically having to finish the boat. And so, you know, I didn't get everything exactly the way we had talked about it, exactly as planned. And, you know, I just made the decision that because he was a friend of mine and knowing the issues that he was going through, that I was just going to get through the build the best way we could. And I wasn't really going to sweat all the little things that maybe I would have had it been, different circumstances. So anyway, one of the major things that I would have changed, or I wanted to do in the beginning, was I wanted the front deck of the boat and the bow to be all flat. I wanted like a casting platform, right? And I didn't want to have anything to trip over. I just wanted everything to be the same level. Step up there, maybe you could lay down on a towel if you wanted to, or stand up there and, and do lots of casting and not worrying about your foot placement so much. So that's not what I got. And it, in some ways it was the builder's fault, in some ways it was my fault, and in the end it was just like a compromise I made basically in order to get the boat done. So I'll kind of show you now what we ended up with. So we've got these 3 doors on here, as you can see, and they rise, the doors rise above the floor level, which is not ideal, right? So when you open it, you can see, and the lid's a little dirty there, but everything opens and it works okay, but it's the doors are raised, and that's not what I wanted. I really wanted a solid floor that was all one level, something I could get up there and stand on. And even getting in and out of the boat, sometimes I come over the bow when we do a beach launch, and it just would have made things better. And I wish it could have been done, and I might even be able to come up with a way to kind of raise the deck on around the lids, and maybe kind of get it in the end. But for right now, we're living with it, and it's probably the thing I wished had been done the most and didn't get done. But it's the kind of thing that if you're gonna take on building a Panga, that definitely I think having your raised part of the bow here area, I think having that all one level is definitely a high priority for anybody. It makes the space so much more usable, so much more comfortable, and you don't have to worry about tripping on lids of boxes or anything like that. So that would be my number one change or issue that I had with building my Panga that I wished would have been done differently. Okay, the number 2 issue is the gunwales, or gunnels. I knew that when I built this, a lot of Pangas, they don't really even have gunnels. They just kind of have the side of the boat. Maybe they put a rolled edge on it, but it could be very narrow. They're very uncomfortable because of the way the hull flares outwards. There wasn't a good place to put your knees. You kind of feel like you're going to fall over the edge. So I knew I wanted to build the gunnels wider so that you could sit on the side, and also so that it gave you some room for your knees, like I'll show you right here. You can see in here it's just perfect to put your knees, and then you've got the top rail here to sit on. That all worked out pretty good, but the one mistake I made was that the hull of the boat flares upwards, and I'll show you here. As you can see, this lip here that comes over the top where the gunnel is secured, and that's all fine, but then with the angle that the hull takes, it makes the interior room of the gunnel very narrow in here, and that made it really hard to fit the rod holders. You can see what I had to do for the rod holder. I had to make some adjustments to it with a grinder. Luckily the rod still fits, but that's not ideal, and because of the way rod holders work, you know, at varying angles, like this one at the rear here, definitely, you know, I have that flared out just a little bit and back, but I would have liked to put another rod holder maybe, you know, right up here in this area. But the problem is that it needs to go outward more, and I just don't have the room in there to fit it, just because of the way it is, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here's a 30-degree rod holder that I had. You can see, you know, that this one would allow the rod to go out away from the boat more, which is what I wanted to do. And I wanted it to put it in this area here so that I could run more than the 2 rods, and then these rods closer to the helm could stick out further, right? So to keep the lines away from each other. But there's just not enough room to get that mounted in there. I just can't do it. So the thing I would do differently is I would have made the gunnels wider. I would have recognized that lip on the outside wasn't going to work, or it was going to take up a lot of the space under this top of the gunnels here, and I would have made it wider, which would have given me room for more rod holders. Which brings up a good point. Hey, if you could help me, you know, I'm a firm believer that I don't have all the answers, and maybe some of you guys do have an answer of what you think I could do in order to add more rod holders here. Like I said, I just don't have a lot of space, and I'm not entirely sure what to do about it right now, because I don't want rod holders that are, you know, sticking too straight up and down, because if you put, you know, more than one rod out, you know, I want separation between the lines. So I'm not exactly sure what to do, and so if you guys got any suggestions, I'd love to hear them in the comments. It would really help me out, because I definitely need more rod holders. I'd like to put some closer to the helm area, or even towards the front of the boat also, so that when we're landing fish and stuff like that, you know, sometimes my wife Marty, she will you know, take in some of the rods, and then we don't really have a great place to put them. She can barely reach the rocket launchers in the T-top, so we end up just kind of laying them towards the front of the boat, and that doesn't work out that great. I don't like leaving stuff as you're fighting fish and getting them to the fish box and all that, having to, you know, worry about rods that are laying on the deck. I don't want to break any rods, so I would love to have a place, you know, to pull that rod out of the water, get the lure handled, and then have a place to stick that rod so that it's out of the way, and that, you know, no one's gonna trip over it or break the rod. So if you got any suggestions, I'd love to hear about it. Okay, another thing that I would change in our Panga is the height of the center console. I had a couple things that I wanted to do here, you know, because of making YouTube videos. I'm actually a wildlife photographer by trade, so I have a lot of camera gear, and I wanted a place especially to put my large stills camera and lens, which is pretty huge. I wanted a decent place to put that where I could get my hands on it quickly, but it would be safe and secure. So we ended up making this big cubby in the front of the center console here, and it actually works really good. So I actually built it myself out of plywood. And so I set it on the garage. I had the seats. I used the seats on the floor of the garage, and as I was building this, I was checking to see about looking over the top of it. And from sitting on a flat surface, it was just right for me, and maybe it was just a little high for the wife, but I do most of the driving of the boat, so I thought we would be okay. But what I didn't think about was that the floor of the boat is angled slightly uphill as you go towards the bow, so it actually has kicked the center console up a couple inches higher than when I was sitting on a flat surface in the garage. So I can see over it, but I have to kind of sit pretty straight up in order to do that. As you can kind of see here, here's kind of my normal line of sight, but I have to kind of sit up like this to kind of see the bow of the boat. Now, this is not a deal breaker, and I don't always sit in the seat here. Sometimes I sit on the side of the gunnel, and a lot of times I'm standing. So, it's not the end of the world, and it's not something that I'm going to change. But if I had to do it again, I probably would have lowered the height of that extra cubby there, and maybe the whole center console. Maybe I would have lowered it about 2 or 3 inches so that I can make sure to have a good view out over the center. Because you want to be able to see where you're going, and luckily we live in a place with not a lot of boat traffic, but if we did live in a place with a lot of boat traffic, it would even be more important. So if you do, I would make sure that whatever you do to customize your Panga, that you make sure that you have good visibility from the captain's chair. Another area that I didn't get done as nicely as I would have liked to was the fish box drain. I've got a huge fish box, which I wanted because we get these pretty big Dorados here and large yellowtail where I live here in Baja, and they could be quite long, especially a big Dorado could be almost 5 feet long. So I needed a big fish box, bigger than say a large cooler, because I think I have a 120 quart cooler, and that'll only fit some of the smaller fish that we catch. So I built this large fish box, which is great. I'll show you here. As you can see, it has 2 doors over the top. But where I messed up on was in doing the drain. If you can see where I have the drain plug there, I bought a kit for the Livewell, and it came with lots of fittings and hose and stuff like that. And so in that box I used, in our fish box, I used one of the pieces that I had. It was for the through hull. And in order to make that work, I had to kind of set it up off the bottom, like I showed you there. You can kind of see if you look carefully. I had to kind of set it a little bit off the bottom. Also, the fish box kind of goes up a little bit on each end, and so it doesn't drain very well. I can't get all the water out of the box, and when you put ice and water in for your fish, you need to have a good drain, and I don't have it all the way at the bottom of the fish box, so I end up having to kind of bail that box out, and it's not as easy to clean as I would have liked. I don't have a solution for that either, and I don't know if there really is a solution. I already have a hole in the side of my boat, and I don't want to really enlarge it or change it now, so I'm probably just going to end up having to live with that. Another thing that I would like to improve on the boat for sure is the location of the life preserver. I didn't really think about it as I was building it, to be honest with you, and it's a requirement in our area. It's probably a requirement in your area. So I didn't have like a place all decided for it when I was designing the interior of the boat. So what we ended up doing was this, which is just attaching it sort of to the side of the T-top here, which works, but it takes up floor space, as you can see here. It takes up floor space that you could see on the way to the fish box back and forth, and I put it on the one side, so I try to stay away from that side. When I have to do some quick movements, maybe with a large fish or something, I come around the other side of the center console. But I would like to do something different with it, and I haven't quite figured out what it is. I was thinking perhaps the top of the T-top, or I don't know. So that's another place I could use your guys' input. If you can in the comments, maybe you can think of a place that I could put it here on the boat. I don't really want to put it on the forward deck, and I don't love it in the place that it's at now, although it works. I need to have it somewhere. Obviously I can get to it in a hurry if I need to. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe on top of the T-top or something like that might be the answer, but then I've got to figure out how to secure it there and all that. So hey, if you've got a suggestion for me, love to hear about it. One of the other things that I want to change or improve on is the location of my fire extinguisher. So here's what I did with it now. Okay, so I mounted it underneath the center console, right? I have a nice door there to get to it. But the other day I opened the center console, and being that the boat's new, there's still some fumes and stuff like that, and you know, I could still smell even some of the paint fumes underneath the center console, and it got me to thinking that, you know, all my electrical connections, my batteries and everything are here under the console. Well, if there's anywhere probably that I'm going to get a spark from, it's going to be under there, right? And so I have my fire extinguisher inside there behind the door, and I'm thinking now that that's probably not the best place to have it. I probably need to have it out in the open, maybe attached to the T-top, which I think is what I'm going to do. I thought it would be nice to have it kind of put away, and you know, that the access is not too bad underneath the center console, but in hindsight now I think, hey, if I had an issue with a fire, that's probably where it would start, right? So I don't want to have my fire extinguisher in there where perhaps I couldn't get to it because of a fire. So I'm going to move that out to the center console and or the T-top and attach it somewhere outside. Another mistake that I made in fitting the boat and rigging it was that I decided that, you know, I put the cleats on. Obviously I put one in the front of the boat, you know, to tie the front off or to connect to another boat if needed, whatever. And then I put two in the back. All that works fine. But then I thought, hey, when I'm at the dock, I would rather just have a cleat on the side of the boat, kind of centrally located. That way I could just tie off one rope and it would be pretty secure. Also, I could use it to tie off the bumpers or anything like that. So I ended up putting them right here on the side of the boat, which, as you can see from the seating area here, they're kind of right in the area where my wife and I like to sit. I got one on each side. So even when folded down, kind of my natural seating spot is like right over the top of that cleat. So that's not a big deal. But it's something I just didn't think about at the time. I was thinking more about, hey, where's the center of the boat? Where would be a good place for tying off a dock line? I didn't think that, hey, in the future, just for a different position, I might want to be sitting there. And so now I need to move them. So anyways, that's a pretty easy deal to do. And I will be doing that here directly. Okay, now I'm here at the stern of the boat. And here I've got a couple of issues here that I would have done differently. What I wanted to do was to have a sizable live well. I wanted it built into the boat. And so, you know, I really tried to optimize the size of that, and it's in the same area as the gas tanks, which is also important. So, you know, I had to kind of, I had to make some compromises there. And in so doing, you know, I tried to make it as deep as possible. And I can kind of show you here that, you know, it's a decent sized live well. I think it's around 23 gallons. It's about 14 or 15 inches deep, and it works fine. However, it didn't leave me a lot of space down here under for access. And as you can see, I've just kind of got I just kind of cut an access because the bottom of the live well goes to right here, all the way across here. And I didn't have room to put a proper, like, round access door like you could find at, you know, West Marine or something like that. It's too small an area. So under that area is where I fit my Livewell pump, all the hoses required for that, and also the bilge pump hose exits the side of the boat underneath the Livewell. So what I probably would have done was raise the level of the Livewell, at least the bottom of it, so that I could have fit more of the standard access doors, like the round ones you find on Amazon or West Marine, something like that. That's what I would have done. I wish I would have done, but now I don't think I can. So I'm living with it the way it is, and you can see I just taped it up there to keep water out of that area. But I wish I had done a little better planning on the final solution for that. Another issue at the stern of the boat is the deck drain. Okay, so right now what I have is I have a centrally located drain with a bilge pump, and then you can see this line here. This goes all the way to the stern of the boat. That's a pass-through all the way through, and that's where any water can escape. Here's where I put the plug in right here, like so. So any water that comes in the boat, it runs to this small drain hole here, and then we pump it out with the bilge pump. One of the issues I have with it, the design, is that, you know, the boat is not always perfectly level, and so when it's perfectly level and tilted towards the rear, well, all the water goes into that little drain basin just fine. But there's times, sometimes in my washout here at home is not perfectly level. Sometimes the boat is, you know, canted to one side or the other, and then not all the water wants to make it into that little drain basin for getting it out of the boat. So if I had to do it again, probably what I would do is probably make 2 more drain basins, one on each side of the boat in the back there, and then that way if it was leaning one way or the other, you know, all the water would be easier to get out of the boat. Probably the last thing that I'm not 100% happy with is the seating for guests. You know, I designed this boat, the whole design was really based on myself and my wife out fishing and filming and doing photography. So I really concentrated on that, and I didn't think too much about wanting to take friends or guests along with us. And so, you know, I designed this, our center console here with the seating that moves around, you know, and so we can face the rear if we want to, you know, or face forward, which works out just great for the 2 of us. However, when we have guests, you know, I don't really have a proper seat for anybody. I did put some of the sea deck back here on the platform over our fuel tanks, and someone can sit there. And the rails are, you know, they're not bad to sit on, but there's no padding or anything like that. And then up on top, up in the front on the fish box, there's no padding on that either, which we could rectify, but, you know, that faces rearward, in which some people, they don't do well, you know, if they have to look rearward all the time. So maybe I just would have done a little better planning on some seating for guests. As I said earlier, you know, I'm really happy with the boat overall, but always in any build, you know, especially this being my very first build, I missed a few things. I had a few issues with my builder. No one's fault really, just kind of life. But you know, so I just wanted to be honest with you and show you a few things that happened and a few things that I would do different. And if you're considering building a boat, maybe they will help you. Okay, so I really appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And if you haven't seen our build videos, make sure you do those. I'll put a link to those videos in the description. If you enjoyed this video, give me a like just to let me know, and we'd love to have you as a subscriber. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you real soon.